I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
Whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm tired because like 50,000 other people, I was in Yankee Stadium for the third night of the Jay-Z concert, the extra innings, and I actually did all 3 nights. Mm-hmm. No, it was.
Which you said from day one, you was like,
I really
hip hop history. I gotta be history. All night.
I've done the Roots picnic and all 3 shows in Yankee Stadium. Like being a kid that grew up 10 blocks from Yankee Stadium, like, and Jay-Z is coming to perform his greatest hits inside Yankee Stadium for the 30th anniversary of one of my favorite albums of all time. Like, why would I not be at every one of those shows? And none of them disappointed me. The third one actually probably was the best. The first one was probably my favorite because just watching him and Nas was like nostalgic for me. And seeing him and Beyonce, her come out and do Marriage, but like I did not expect her to come out to sing Mary J. Blige's part.
Mary's on at her residency in Vegas.
Yeah, so
can't just break it. Somebody said that Jeezy broke his residency, but he's been doing it for so long, you could kind of play with it. But Mary, like she, it's new, and she had a lot of people because some of our people left Friday night show and went to Angelo and Jamila. They left Friday night show, went to the airport the next morning, and went to Vegas to see Mary for Jamila's birthday. So happy birthday shout out to Dr. Jamila T. Davis.
Yeah, shout out to Dr.
Celebrated
Davis.
her birthday.
Yeah, but it was amazing. I think so. If you haven't heard, which you probably must be under a rock if you didn't hear, that on Sunday night that the doors did not open. They closed the doors for about 4 hours. The show did not start till 12:15 exactly in the AM. So it probably was the 4th night. We actually have 4 nights of a Jay-Z concert, and the show did not finish till 3 a.m. Mm-hmm. And even though my feet was on fire because I had constructions on, in true New York fashion, you go to a Jay-Z concert, where you celebrating that nostalgic feeling. You want to go back to that feeling. So I had my constructions on, my Yankee hat, and my feet was on fire. So, but
y'all socks was too thin. I wore constructions the night before, and I didn't feel no pain. And it was because I had on thick socks
maybe that's what
felt like cushion on the bottom. Y'all socks was too thin.
Yeah, I got to figure that out because I can't do that again.
It was too long, and probably.
But it was amazing.
You needed on shoes from Skechers. You see, when you go to a concert and to places like that, you need Skechers.
Nah, my sons wear slides everywhere.
Yeah, but those are also because they wear, I think, the Yeezy slides that I wear, and they're cool. But after a while, even that, like giving you the type of posture. I'm telling you, what is wrong with you that you're not accepting that Skechers?
I'm not gonna wear no Skechers.
Skechers is for your back and help you with your.
But it's not my back; it's my foot. If it was my back.
That too. Skechers is for all the things.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do no Skechers.
Well, see, that's the problem with people.
I just don't like Skechers.
Yeah, no, but that's because you like certain things. We have to, when you turn old like you are, you have to accept the fact that the things you used to do, you can't do those things anymore. You have to wear things that are more for your health and the security of your body and all of that than fashion.
But I'm not going to.
And Skechers has some cute things. Have you seen it?
I'm not going to see it because I'm not going to wear no Skechers.
Okay, well,
you know what I'm saying?
Don't say I didn't tell you.
Thank you.
And then one day, and when we got to put your clothes on for you and help you around,
then maybe
put them
but
Skechers
right now I'm
personally
not gonna wear no Skechers. You know what I'm saying? So moving right along, on day 3 of the concert, it was full of surprises. You know, like you said, Jeezy was there, Usher was there, Beyonce came out. You know, Tiana Taylor actually did Mary's verse in the song this time. Jadakiss and Fat Joe did their thing. They did New York. Who else? Jermaine Dupri came out. Pharrell came out. It was like really like
exhilarating.
It was one of those nights, man. And Rihanna. I have never seen Rihanna and Beyonce perform on the same stage at the same time.
Like they weren't on it at the same time.
I'm on the same show. I've never seen that before.
Because just so you know, being in the same stadium doesn't mean like actually having to interact.
No, I'm just saying I've never seen
you like this.
But I'm just saying I've never seen them perform on the same night
it's
on
great.
The same stage. I've never seen that.
It's great.
That
was a lot of unity.
Yeah, it was one for the ages, man. So shout out to Hov, man. And the show was just amazing. And you could tell that after, you know, they try to breach the doors. That's why it happened. And so it was a safety issue.
They didn't try. They breached the doors. People got in.
Yeah,
and I watched this one little clip where a woman squeezes her way through. She gets kind of stuck. And when she finally makes it in, she's like, you know, kind of out of it. Like, it's not really a game. It's serious. People have, you know, it's unfortunate to bring up old things, but this is similar to what took place at City College.
Yeah, and I think that's what he was definitely trying to avoid, because he knew that, you know, with that type of situation, he said it was literally still about 10,000 people outside. Yeah. And had they, you know, not secured everything and just said, all right, we're not letting the people in and we're just going to start the show without them, people might have started bum rushing. And
anything could have happened. And you know, I don't think that Puff intended for people to die at his basketball tournament. Obviously, he was younger, didn't really all the way understand logistics and all of that. And I'm sure there's some blame for the college. But nevertheless, people got hurt. Like, that was very serious. And he ended up having to deal with that. Yeah. Like, he had to deal with that. I think
somebody lost their life, actually.
Yeah, he had to deal. No, they did. It did.
I was there the day before because my couple players from my school was playing in the tournament. And I remember going there the day before, and it was like we were supposed to go back the next day, and we didn't. You know, and that's when the
incident happened. Yeah, like, I mean, you know, so I can understand that, but I still would say that Yankee Stadium's logistics was just not up to par in the way in which I would have thought that they would have been, because I've been to a number of Yankee games, and it, you know, people are definitely crowded on the outside, but everybody kind of funnels through, gets where they're going. And I've been to, you know, many, many, many Yankee games, and I don't feel that they had the same that they put the same effort into the logistics the same way that they have at other events. Maybe when concerts happen and the seats change and different things, you know, move around, it might have caused there to be just a difference in process that they're not used to because they don't do it all the time. But there definitely was some kind of logistical issue that a lot of people were speaking on. I saw it on social media. I ended up standing in one spot talking to a man, and he and I said the same exact thing. Like, you know, if another person tells us go that way and then that way and that way and that way, and you never really ever know where you're supposed to be, that's like a problem. You know what I'm saying? And so I think there's probably a lot of things that can be in a debrief where people can understand that you can put people's lives in danger when you don't have your logistics together.
No, that was 100% true. You know, that happened on the second night. It was just like trying to figure out where to go, and we had passes, and everybody was saying, you go this way, you go that way. You know, fortunately for me, the first night, shout out to Fat Joe, I was with him in his suite. And we just went in the elevator and went straight to the suite, so there wasn't much for me to have to deal with that. And I just stayed in the suite the whole time and just enjoyed that. But last night, it wasn't like that. I actually got in there kind of early, you know.
But people needed to be in that stadium from 4 o'clock, from 3 o'clock.
But the thing is, it wasn't crowded. Like, the thing is, I don't I'm trying to figure out why is it taking so long to fill, because I got into the stadium probably about 7:45, right? Almost 8 o'clock. And it wasn't nowhere near full.
Well, you're going through a different entrance.
No, but I'm talking about inside the stadium.
Yeah, because the people were outside.
But that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm so confused at why is it so empty
I'm
at
telling
8
you,
o'clock?
I believe, I truly.
When the show's, the doors opening at 7, it's like, why it probably wasn't even about, probably about 1,000 people in there.
I truly believe that the stadium's logistics were not up to where it should be. I could be wrong. I mean, obviously, I don't know shit. I'm just over here just running, chapping my gums.
I'm just saying to myself, the way that even when I would get there, the second night when I got there, the first night when I got there, it was 9:30. The show didn't start till 9:30. I probably got in like 9, right? And the front of Yankee Stadium was so crowded still at 9 o'clock. And I'm like, I know the show is supposed to start at 9.
It's people that don't have tickets, too. That's a whole other thing. Is that people don't have tickets. They just show up.
But not that many people. It's no way that
I bet you it is. I promise you. Because at least 10 people told me, I ain't got no ticket, but I'm going. I promise you.
But yeah, but those are the people that standing by McDonald's. They
no,
moving the streets.
They're not.
They got the club. They had the dugout. The dugout was popping all night. So people was going into the little spots doing their thing. But people is not trying to stand on that line with no ticket. They just go
to the door and see what happens.
Get on the line for hours?
You know why people feel that way? You know why people feel that way? Because in their mind, Jay-Z and all of this is like, that's the homie. Like, I know I'm gonna get in. Like, that's how they feel. I'm telling. Well, we know for sure that people who breached the door did not have tickets.
We don't, because they
some of them didn't. They know that for sure. I mean, I read an article on it. Some of them did not have tickets. I'm sure some of them did. It was a mixture, but there were people who didn't have tickets. There were people who went there and said, when the crowd moves, we just going inside.
What?
Because everybody is invited. That's what I mean. What do you mean?
There's no way.
Everybody's invited. But anyway,
no
let's get this show going today because we have a good guest that's coming up to talk about his new book. You know, I have sensitivity for authors because I know how hard it is to write a book, and what has been created by this gentleman is a masterpiece. And so
this is true.
I'm excited to welcome our guest. So let me just piggyback on the conversation about Jay-Z weekend. Of course, I went. I enjoyed. My friends went. I was able to take my son, which is a very, big moment for us because he's like the tail end of Jay and I'm the all the way in, from day one. And so, definitely having him to be able to experience it with me, that was great. And I saw everybody and had a great time and just enjoyed it. And I'm, and I'm happy that other people, I'm so happy that New York has had a stretch like the Knicks winning and all the stuff that's been happening. We needed this city. This has taken,
has revitalized.
Not just revitalized, also made some people money. From the t-shirt guys to the sneaker stores to the, every single thing, the restaurants, the clubs, everything. There has been a real, as you said, revitalization of the city. And giving people an opportunity to come out and enjoy themselves in a way that has not happened in a long time. And I think it kind of started all the way back with Mom Donnie's win. Since then, we've been having some good moments. And while there has been some violence and some bad things to happen, it hasn't been as bad as it could be, right? There was a little destruction during the Knicks games. Mm-hmm. Kind of got a little, but it did not. People didn't burn the city down. There was no looting and things of that nature. So this has been a good stretch, and I love that for us. So I'm happy to know that. Now, I wanted to talk about the last couple of weeks we've been in sort of this world of going back and forth on the Target boycott, and I don't shy away from it. I know everybody's not going to agree. We know that when you open your mouth. Even for the funny thing about it is that even working with our sister Nina Turner, who started the boycott, first person to get out there and say, let's boycott Target, supporting her efforts. And then also, partnering with Jamal Bryant, Pastor Bryant, and working with him and all the things that have happened, there was controversy. So from day one, there's been people, it was an onslaught of people who said, why y'all doing that? It doesn't make sense. What about this? What about that? What about the businesses? What about all of these, what about the workers? What about? Well, I don't like it. Well, how come we can't focus on a different company? Well, I don't, what y'all get then when we said, okay, Pastor Bryant is going to suspend some of his daily activity that he had been holding for over a year, then it was people who said, oh, who took a check? Did y'all get money? Which absolutely did not happen. In between all of that, there was a different celebrity, a different brand, a different somebody to work with Target, which created issues, the pastors, the this, that. I mean, there has been a consistent struggle of opinion and thought and feelings, and people who have found themselves standing firmly even when they don't know what they're talking about on one side of the track, or the other. So that we're used to, and so we don't shy away from it. We address what we feel needs to be addressed. And throughout the 3 days of this concert, on Friday, Jay makes a comment that people pretty much like, you're upset with me about my albums being sold in Target. This is not exactly what he said, but I assume that this is what he meant, that you're upset with me or challenging me because my albums are being sold in Target, and yet you're using Meta, you're using Amazon. Like, are you also boycotting those people? Because if not, it's hypocrisy to some extent. And I think, one of the things that I found to be the biggest sort of argument, if you will, or the spot where I go back and forth with people a lot, is in this idea that when I talk about all the other people who have had partnerships with Target and people who've worked with them throughout this process, Black folks that have continued working with them and or have new partnerships, they're like, oh, it's not the same level. It's not the same level. Those people are at this level and Jay-Z is at the top of the food chain, so it makes it different. And I guess I'm trying to hear that, but I don't all the way accept it, because for us, the people who were holding the responsibility of the boycott every day, every time we saw anybody, including a lady with a pocket with a red bag walking down the street, it's like, God dang, why? Like, that we always felt that. We would always discuss it like, damn, are we making progress? What's happening? And thankfully, what we saw was a stock price that was down low for enough time to prove that the boycott was actually a part of the pressure keeping Target's ass on their toes, right? Like, we know that. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because when I hear Jay make that statement, why not Meta and why not this one and Amazon and all of that, it doesn't just stick with him for me, right? Like, I don't hear that and then say, oh, I can't believe Jay-Z said that. You know why? Because in the movement, and when I say in the movement, I'm talking about other social justice organizations, organizers, people that folks respect in the movement, people who are doing great work. Our brother Charlemagne, we've had to have this conversation. That topic came up all the time. So when I hear him say it, it's reminiscent of people in the comment section, of arguments that we had in the movement, things that have been off the table that nobody has known about. And what makes it, to the people's point, what makes it need to be addressed in this moment is that his platform is so big that when he says it, it goes so far that it in effect it has the ability to influence people's thinking, and therefore you have to educate, because you can't just leave it unaddressed. So I want to go back to how the Target boycott started and why, right? Again, from my perspective and what I know based upon receipts that we have proven, Senator Nina Turner was the initial person to say, let's boycott Target if they don't go back, if they don't reverse their decision to stand with the bigotry of Donald Trump. That is what she said. She called me. She's the first person to put that out there in the world. Mm-hmm. The reason why this is important and how Target became the target is because of the position their CEO took during the uprising for George Floyd, which they also are headquartered in the place where the actual heart of the uprisings took place, which is in Minneapolis, right? Yep. That is where the CEO comes out and says, George Floyd could have been one of my employees. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we are committed to X, Y, and Z. The DEI practices, the different things that they were going to do with the Black community. Also, sometime years before that, Michelle Obama names Target. And women everywhere. I didn't even know what Target was until I heard her say Target, and I was like, oh, wow. And we, in many ways, began to support Target. One, because the First Lady, the forever Black First Lady, kind of said this is the place for us and made it a culturally accepted business for all communities and particularly for Black folks. Mm-hmm. And then two, we know that the CEO made this very, very powerful statement about his position on George Floyd. Now, in addition to that, their initiatives that they started through their DEI programs allowed people like Tabitha Brown and other businesses to go into Target and go into partnership with them. And it was a place that we could go to find many Black products on the shelves. Sister B, Judy, just a bunch of people. Let me not get in trouble. Mm-hmm. And it became a place where you could go to find some Black businesses. A lot of Black businesses. And therefore, when the list of companies are dropping DEI and saying and siding with the bigotry of the Trump administration, people are listening to the rollout. And at some point, when Target comes out, which is 48 hours later, maybe 72 hours later, folks say, bingo, I can impact that. Mm-hmm. I can do something.
And they felt the most betrayed.
With that.
They felt the most betrayed.
That's right. They said
Target had made a lot of promises. It has seemed to be with diversity, equity, inclusion. It seemed to be on the side of right, especially in the George Floyd situation. So people felt betrayed by that. I don't think they felt betrayed by anything.
Well, whether they may have felt, because I see people, they're not on this, they're not, they don't support Amazon anymore. They're not going to be. What I'm saying is that when people saw Target, it moved people to do something, right? And I want to put a pin in that so that I can make a comparison to a different issue.
Okay.
Breonna Taylor and Pamela Turner. Pamela Turner was a woman in Houston, Texas, who was struggling with a mental illness issue. An officer who actually lived in that neighborhood and knew her challenges, saw her or received or heard a report or something that she was rumbling in a garbage can, approached her, and while Pamela Turner was laying down on the ground, the officer shot her to death and killed her. That to me was one of the worst cases I've ever seen. It's not to say that Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, all the list of Tatiana Jefferson, that the list of other people are not terrible. But this particular case in Pamela Turner moved me personally to say, how could we not raised the roof on society behind a woman who had a mental health issue being shot to death on the ground in the ways in which she was. And I can tell you that most people, when they hear us speaking about Pamela Turner today, they'll say, who is that? What happened? I don't know anything about that. It's not that they don't care. It doesn't make them bad people. But that's just not something that they knew about. And people will say, well, what did y'all do? We went there. We raised her name. We had her daughter on our shows. We talked about it. We tried everything we could to get some attention around Pam Turner's story. But it did not move people in the same way that the story of Breonna Taylor and other stories have done, right? And all of them deserve equal and more than what they even received in terms of attention, awareness, and the fight to at least have some accountability for the loss of life. All of them received that. You cannot always determine what is going to be the thing that moves people in a movement. Sometimes people will go in the direction that you are thinking, but at other times, people will not be inspired on a particular cause if they do not feel that there's something that they can actually do, right? There's a connection, and they know I have the ability to impact this. So when Jay and other people raise this issue, again, it's not just Jay, it's been Charlamagne, it's been people in our movement that have said, why won't we do all these other things? The thing that I'm confused about is, are we saying that because all the companies are not being boycotted at the same time, that means that the efforts of millions of people should be ignored? Is that what we're saying? And are we also saying that we lack the sophistication to be able to understand that when there is a movement and a struggle and a target, pun intended, that we have chosen, that we can get behind that, complete that task, and then move on to other things, especially when people see the power of what we were able to accomplish in point one before trying to go to point two. Because what happens is that when we ask the question, why not all of these other companies at the same time, and why this one and not that one, what we are doing essentially is saying, let's do nothing. Let's do nothing. Because we already know that when you give people 40 different tasks at one time, it is very difficult for people to be able to focus and get something done. We have to look at what our intended message and target is and then move on that. And I am proud of the people who didn't ask the question, why not this or why not that they were able to say, if this is the way that we're moving, I am going to get behind it and support it, because I want to be in the number of Black people who are standing up for ourselves, regardless of whether or not I agree with everything about this issue. I didn't choose Target as the target, but you know who did? My mother did. People from her dance group did. People in the community chose Target. The people chose Target.
That's it.
And that's it. And so you don't have to like it. You don't have to support it. You can actually go walk right in the Target. But no matter what we say, and I'm going to continue to repeat that over and over again, because guess what? We are not all going to agree. We are not. And I have listened and watched people sit on TV, on radio shows, now on a stage in front of what is now millions of people, stand up and try to diminish the work, the value of the work that we are doing by uniting around a cause and being very serious about it. And what I would say over and over and over again is that there are probably millions, I would say hundreds of thousands of us, that don't care what you sell. We ain't buying it if it's going to be in Target.
That's pretty much my stance, you know. Like when he said that, I say to myself, you know, like I wanted to reply in the freestyle. Like I really said, I'm gonna write me an acapella to reply to it, you know, because that's the way to do it. So I've been thinking about it. I just been mulling it over in my head, but I just think in my just if I have to answer right now, what I would say is, you've been doing this 30 years, right? You know, activists along who've been a part of this boycott have been doing 20, 30 years as well. And he's an expert in hip hop. He's an expert in businessman, all that. And people might pay him the $1 million to sit down with Jay and ask him about those things. But he doesn't do activism, right? He's an expert in hip hop. He's an expert businessman, you know, but none of us are experts at everything. And I think there are people who have been doing civil rights work, who have been boycotting, who know the history. You know, even when we look at the Target boycott, it's documented to be the most successful boycott since the Montgomery boycott. This is documented. The stats and everything say that. So, you know, there's room for everybody to be taught, you know. And I think sometimes you say things or sometimes you believe things. And I'm not a person that just is going to let you say something that I don't agree with, no matter who it is. So I don't actually agree with that statement, you know, and I think it's open for dialogue and we can learn from each other. Maybe you know something I don't about this situation. Maybe I know something you don't, but I got a little something I'm putting together.
Yeah, I think that we can learn from one another. I'm open to that. And I think that that's part of why I continue to underscore that throughout this entire process, I have chosen not to fight every black person in Target.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different perspectives and ideas, and I felt like there's been many disappointing things that have happened. And I felt like every time somebody popped up in a partnership with Target, if I focused my attention on that, not only would I not be able to get a lot of the other work that I have done, but I would literally be spending my time in a posture like of darkness, like anger all the time because of the ways in which you're fighting. You know that the fight you're fighting is a good fight. And then there are people who will always undermine it, either because they just don't know or either because, you know, they don't feel connected to it. There's always
sometimes they just don't agree.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't agree. Listen, everybody in the movement didn't agree on Target.
They don't agree, no. It's not a thing. It's nothing wrong with not agreeing, but just to understand the premise of why we don't boycott a million things at one time.
It's not really viable because getting Target up to speed.
Exactly. Just
it was
having
work.
People focusing on one thing. So telling people, look, you can't go out and buy nothing from nowhere, and we just going. That's just not something that is doable in this moment. It's never been something that has been, you know, successful. So why would we try a strategy that's not been successful? So. You know, that's my take on it. But I still got my little freestyle put together, a little acapella.
All right. So our next guest actually, I'm sure, has a perspective on this as he is one who's led successful boycotts. He has a new book out that we want to tell you about right now. Check out Rashad Robinson. We'll be right back.
Right back.
Well, we are in studio today with our good friend. Y'all know we love to have our friends on our show. And this particular friend is a super powerhouse. And so you all may know him from TV as being the man with the hat who's super smart, that sits at the table with people at the highest level of corporate, entertainment, and media, speaking on various topics and advocating for Black folks and other groups that have been marginalized and or oppressed. And that would be true. All those things would be true. Mm-hmm. But he's also our buddy, our friend.
That's right.
And we're happy to have Rashad Robinson today, who is a social justice strategist and author whose work has helped produce changes in corporate behavior, media representation, technology policy, and the criminal justice system. Rashad led Color of Change for nearly 14 years and previously worked at GLAAD. His record, your record, includes helping to launch the progressive prosecutor movement, winning net neutrality protections, challenging discriminatory practices in technology, and co-leading a successful boycott against Facebook and Instagram. So thank you for coming. This is your first time being on the TMI podcast.
It is my first time. It's so good
podcast.
I'm a listener and a fan, and now I get to be participant. So thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us today.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah.
You know, I admire just watching you navigate in different spaces. You know, you always seem comfortable. You always have the right answers. You know, I used to be very flustered and scared. And watching you, it gives me a level of confidence and it gives me something to aspire to. So I just want to say, like, you're a motivation to me. So I appreciate you doing this.
That's very
So now you have this book.
Yes.
Like, and when I'm reading the synopsis and going through it, and it really just culminates the work that you do.
Yeah.
That most people don't understand what it takes to create a movement, what it takes to create power. A lot of people just see, oh, there's a march, or they see people boycott, and they see people angry. And you just summed it up that none of those things individually actually create power.
Yes.
You know, there's a culmination of all those things. So give me just an idea of what made you want to write this book.
There were so many moments along the way where I would see people move into what I talk about as magical thinking, like the stories we tell ourselves about change, but are not actually true. Sometimes the things that we wish, we kind of hope. There was this moment, y'all, it was at the end of the Obama years, and they had invited all the criminal justice advocates, like people who had been working locally, all the folks that they worked with. Folks work locally. They had a lot of funders. They had some formerly incarcerated folks. They had national folks, local folks. So probably about 100 plus people. And they were doing a victory lap on what they had done.
All the people or the Obama?
The Obama administration was doing a victory lap. This was after Hillary had lost. And so we knew what was about to happen, but they were trying to keep us in the story of the successes, right? And, you know, I go to this meeting and, you know, they're talking about different things. And there was a fireside chat with Loretta Lynch during lunch. And she was the attorney general at the time. And she's ticking off all these new announcements. And I'm like, is any of this real? Like, and, you know, they start letting people ask questions. And, you know, for the first several years of the Obama administration, I wasn't really invited to a lot of things. It wasn't until towards the end, you know, I was used to being out front with petitions, pushing, but that was the role, you know? And so I wasn't always the person they would bring a microphone to, because I would oftentimes ask a question about corporate power or something.
Make people uncomfortable.
But, you know, now it's at the end of the administration, and, you know, the young people that are walking around with the microphones, they need jobs. And I had jobs. So, like, they came to me with the microphone and let me ask. And I said, thank you, Attorney General Lynch. Appreciate this. But you're in a room full of the people who helped make this happen. What is our marching orders? What should we do next? Because what we know is that the folks that just got elected are trying to undo all these things. And her retort was that we've made a lot possible and the country has changed.
They thought that for real.
This is what they said to a room full of the biggest activists, donors, leaders that have been working on criminal justice, that things had changed and that things were going to continue to move forward. And I was just like, this is exactly the type of magical thinking that needs to be disrupted. And it doesn't get disrupted just by running good campaigns. It disrupted by offering up a new framework. And that was when I first realized that maybe it was a book, maybe it was something else, but I needed to do something that stepped back. And that was, 10 years ago now. But over those 10 years, so much has happened. So many moments where I felt like the calling to put in wins and losses, but also build a framework that is 21st century, that focuses on the role of corporations, that focuses on the role of race, that focuses on the role of what's happening in big tech, and gives us all, like, the tools we need right now to win more things.
From presence to power.
Yes.
And when I think of that, being someone who's been in this movement for 30 years of my life, I know all too well what it is to have proximity and not power. And I'm assuming that you have experienced some of the 100%. Very same things. And I'm not talking about other people. I'm saying even me, being in the rooms, going to the meetings, being at the events, being invited, but not feeling like when it's time to move the needle, that I have the actual power to do so or the influence to do so. And also kind of feeling like people who are supposed to be on your side are not necessarily like they're okay with just being invited to the thing.
Yep.
And that's really hard, you know. And I just wonder what is your experience there? Like, have there been moments when you had to say, and do you talk about it in the book, moments where you had to say, oh, okay, I'm like a problem person here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because your ideas are maybe too strong, too whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the willingness to not take corporate money meant that I was free in a lot of situations. So, you know, I tell a lot of stories in the book, and I break them down so that people can sort of have the strategic understanding behind them. But I talk a lot about the back and forth with Facebook during the big tech section, and just exactly what you're saying, right? So Facebook had so many harmful practices, and the government was not regulating, right? Our cars are safe because there's regulation and rules, not because the auto industry
cares so much about
right. And tech is the same way. There's no rules, so these big companies regulate themselves, and so then they do whatever they want. And so, you know, we had been advocating, you know, as I was leading Color Change, we'd been advocating and pushing and demanding very publicly for Facebook to do things. And while they were doing that, we finally gotten to the table to talk to them. Like getting in the room, talking to them, not at the highest levels, but we were talking to people who were decision makers, and then we found out from the New York Times that they had hired a PR firm to plant baseless stories about the organization and me, and the New York Times revealed it that they hired this company called Definers, and all of a sudden now Facebook has to deal with this crisis on their hands, and they have to meet with us now at the highest level. So now Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg have to meet. And I remember going out to Menlo Park, which is their headquarters, and get to the headquarters, and they want me to sign an NDA.
To have the conversation.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
We've been under attack. So we don't sign the NDA, and they give me a big badge that says no NDA on it. To wear around their headquarters.
Wow.
So now I go to the meeting. And, you know, through those series of meetings over the several years, I really did learn the difference between being in a dialogue and a negotiation. They want to keep you in a dialogue. They want to keep you talking. They want to be able to say that they're talking to you. You know, we had a meeting with Tamika. We really heard her concerns. We understand that the community's upset. Being in a negotiation is when you have actual leverage, when you have the ability to set a timeline of expectations that if you don't do this by this date, we're going to do this. And I talk about the difference because I think it's important because proximity to power, presence, can be intoxicating sometimes. It can make us think that something has happened that hasn't happened. When we mistake presence for power, we can think that the black president means that we're post-racial. We can think that the pop star that announces they're pregnant and the internet stops means that America loves black people, as America loves black culture. But we know that America can love, celebrate, and monetize, of course, black culture and hate black people at the same time. And so presence can be a trap. It's not bad. It just can make us think that something has happened. And so, you know, even the cover of the book, presence is faded. And power is like fully realized because presence does fade. It goes in and out. How much visibility, how much shine, those go in and out. Your ability to shape the world, shape the outcomes, shape the decisions, that's power. And that's what we as black people, what we as folks who are marginalized, who have been excluded, that's what we have to constantly, because they're going to always be willing to be in dialogue with us, always be willing to give us a little bit of presence. But are we in a place to actually change the rules? And what I'm trying to offer is a framework for that. And one of the things I did as I was writing this book, I was like, how do we help people apply these tools? And so at the end of 9 of the chapters, there's exercises. Take out a piece of paper and it's called Find Your Power. And my goal was to like, how do I help people make sense of this if you are taking on a fight around books being banned in your local community, or you're facing down a data center, or you have some issue with Congress or a big business. All of those things are sort of, they have entry points in the book. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And there's something that I read that you said that having moral clarity, having public opinion and all those things on your side does not necessarily mean that you will win. What else do you need to have? Because that's hard for us justice-minded individuals who actually come from a place of morality and want to do things just, right? So to know that you can have all those things and still not win is crazy.
It's crazy, but I think it's once you release that, once you get that, then it helps you actually just settle in with what's required, right? People will say 75% of Americans are, want sensible gun reform.
Right.
Why don't we have it?
Why don't we have it?
That a poll.
So that means that there's a moral clarity. It's there. Morals. You got religious leaders calling for it. You have the majority of Americans for it, and you got schools of white kids being shot up. Babies,
and you can't pass the legislation. And so I talk a lot about profiteering in the book, because I think we have to truly understand profiteering in order to understand one of the biggest things that stands in the way of change actually happening. Behind every type of injustice is someone making money. Someone profiting. And so that is why sometimes public opinion doesn't actually help us, because you have to overcome people that are going to fight like hell to keep the systems that have benefited them in place. And I talk about profiteering in two ways. I talk about profiteering in terms of money, because, it is about money, but I also talk about profiteering in terms of hierarchy. I think about Stephen Miller, who works for Trump, as a profiteer. Now, I don't think Stephen Miller is really in it for the money necessarily. That's not why you go and work in the White House. He's in it because he wants his kids to be able to go to schools that your kids can't.
That's right.
He wants to have access to certain rewards of society for himself, and he wants society structured to his benefit and not yours. And that is a type of profiteering too. And I think what we sometimes do, what the left sometimes do, is the left will sometimes focus simply on the economic hierarchy and miss the race hierarchy. And as a number of people have read the book, they've like, Rashad, I really loved the book, but you kept going back to race over and over and over again.
Oh,
I was like,
everything. And
I was like, well, let's just be really clear. Our interest in avoiding race sometimes on the left is what got us into this, right? Like, if once we know that racial injustice is their strategy, we have to be clear that racial justice has to be ours. And I think about sort of like the profiteering, the hierarchy, and the money as being very clear as to why you can have public opinion on your side, why you can have millions of people in the streets, and you still may not get the thing over if you are not directing your energy at the places that are going to stand in the way. And so in this moment where I look at what's happening with voting rights, I look at sort of our inability to get the type of policing reform or other things, taking our fights simply to the city councils or state capitals and not taking on the profiteers, not taking on the corporations who are making money, not taking on the enablers, will be to our detriment. And so any 21st century sort of understanding of power has to address the 21st century way our opponents have built power. And they've built it through corporations, through enablers, through money, through marketing, through all of these things. And if we're not disrupting that, we're playing the wrong game. We're playing the absolute wrong game, and we're playing a game that just sets us up to lose more.
Right. During the Target boycott, at the height of the Target boycott, you and I had many conversations, and I've said many times, but let me also say here, thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Because there were days when I was really heartbroken, and you said, this is hard.
Yep.
This is hard. You said boycotts are hard, organizing our people, it is hard. And I now, especially after the fallout and how all the things happened, that no matter what you say and how your intentions may have been over here, people's emotional and also their passion in general around it, it just feels to them one way, and there's nothing that you can say to cancel that out. Like, you just have to walk into it.
Yep.
I've heard you say that before too.
Yep.
You were speaking somewhere, and I was listening to you say that when people are committed to you being wrong, for whatever reason, instead of trying to like fight it all the time, sometimes you just have to walk into it and then figure it out from even inside the bowl. It was something about being inside the bowl. But when you said it was hard, I don't know if I understood what you meant until I've actually had to go through and carry a boycott for this long. 100%. It is really, really hard.
Yeah. So like as someone who's done this, I always tell people right up front that it's hard. I actually think we do people a disservice that we're going to overtake authoritarianism or we're going to face down the biggest moneyed corporations in the world and that it's going to be easy.
It's going to be easy.
You know, anyone who tells you there's like these 5-10 steps that you can take and like they're playing in your face.
I'm sure it's a book out there like that.
There are all sorts of stuff out there that, and I think like if you want to take 10 steps to lose, buy their book. If you actually want to recognize that the forces standing in our way are winning, not by accident, but because this is not easy, this is not simple. Our ancestors who won and lost battles along the way, like, were doing their very best, and it's our job right now to do our very best. But knowing that it is hard is actually important, because the other thing I recognize about the commitment that the other side has is like sometimes, you know, on our side, I hear people say, when we win, and they'll talk about when we win, and they'll say all these things
how
will
we
happen.
win,
And our opponents never really say that. The war is never over for them. The Civil War was never over for them. Like, so like, you know, if you're like a Marvel fan, if you're like a fan of like action movies, imagine facing an opponent where the war never ends for them and you think there's some magical ending point of the war. We've like structured ourselves. And so what they've done really effectively is they've made the whole thing about their participation, the whole sport about their participation. And our side is sort of like, we're a spectator sport where we go and we watch the Knicks, or we go and we watch Hamilton, and we sit in the seats and watch. But they're on the field. So you go to the gym and they're putting Fox News up on the TV,
everything,
right? They're wearing their red caps around. They are like putting on their jersey and every day are showing up because they believe they are in a never-ending war for their children, for their hierarchy, for like their profiteering, all of these things. And we're in this like battle of like, oh, well, eventually we're going to win and they're going to come on our side.
Yeah,
no, we're gonna get some books in the library and then they're going to try to ban them.
Right.
We're going to get some people elected through voting rights, and then they're going to try to make sure that we don't actually get to see a voting booth ever again. Like, this is the back and forth, and that's why power is so important. And understanding power and understanding what our opponents will do means that we could be more clear-eyed about what we're willing to do for ourselves, for our family, for our community, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
And how hard it's going to be to actually do it.
How hard it's going to be.
What do you think is the hardest part? For me, what becomes difficult is the internal confusion.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, because I already know the beast that I'm up against, right? I come from a family that is in a never-ending struggle. That's always been, because they are true historians. They come out of a movement that was like before our movement. You know, my parents started, they are now 80 years old, and my grandfather organized the labor union for my dad. Not for my dad. My dad's father organized a labor union for mill workers in North Carolina. So this is a never-ending struggle for them. And they wear the clothes, the jersey, they've got it on. They're in the struggle all the time. But, and they are constantly trying to get me to understand that us fighting each other is like where the process slows down so much, because every movement they've been in, the internal struggle has been the thing.
But everybody has an idea of what they think is going to win. And it's not like it's right or wrong. It's just your theory of what it looks like. And that's what a lot of leaders come to the table and they say, I think we should do this and I think we should do this. And then they come to consensus. It's not like they forget or abandon their theory, right? So they, and in some ways, they want to be able to say, "I told you we should have did it this way," right? And so those things happen too. So and I think for me. And I think us as black people, so when we look at the target, we look at the boycott that you did with Facebook and all those things, I think that if we are not careful, they will divide us all the time in those things. Like real leaders who are actually love our people, because what happens is me and you might differ in a strategy for a target, no pun intended, a target for a boycott.
Pun intended.
Yeah, for a boycott. And because we differ, people will be like, he's not with you. He's not for black people.
He's not real.
He's not real. Because
yep.
if he was with you, then he would say the same thing. And I'm like, that's not how this moves. That's no movement has monolithic leaders who have one idea all the time. No, sometimes we're gonna have different disagreements. Sometimes we got to go to the table and we might argue. We might be mad at each other, but we understand that our liberation is bond together. So we're gonna figure it out. And I tell people all the time, I don't agree with all my friends. And me and Tamika argue all the time. Like our whole strategy for this podcast starts out with I don't agree.
With you.
Yes,
Right.
yes. I appreciate that. I think we need disagreement, and I think we need ways to disagree. When I look back at the fights between Du Bois and Washington and King and
Snip
Malcolm
all the
X,
things,
they were all arguing in really deep ways, and
they all loved black people.
And all loved black people, and they also really respected each other. You know, and they had a way of arguing. But let's just be clear, I talk about the ALEC campaign in the book. And
that's right. How hard that was.
But I didn't go into the fact that
tell people what ALEC. Tell people about
ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council. It is this right-wing organization that was founded by the same guy that founded Heritage Foundation, which is behind Project 2025 and so much more. They were behind the Stand Your Ground laws. They bring corporations and state legislators into meetings, and they basically write what they call model legislation, and they introduce it into states. They're so successful that state legislators will take their model legislation and not even remove the ALEC name off, and it would get passed. And they were behind the discriminatory voter ID laws in, that said you can vote with your gun license but not your student ID. They were behind all of these really outrageous laws, and I led a campaign that got over 100 corporations to divest from sponsoring ALEC. But I watched during some of those battles, whereas I was walking out of a meeting with a corporation, another civil rights group was walking in to get a check. And they were and had I waited to build a coalition for that campaign, it would have never happened.
Right. And meanwhile, that same group or organization, I don't know who it is, we've not discussed that, but I can imagine. But anyway, was probably walking in a room doing something else somewhere else that was really important. It's it's like to Mysonne's point, there's tension in and how we ever get to the place. Well, let me say this. Let me say it this way. I think that our fights are now so much more public than they were in the past. And so the internal struggles that you speak about that were very necessary, today it's on social media.
And the attention economy of social media makes it so that in order for you to be heard, you have to say things, and you have to say it in a certain way, and you have to sort of burn people down in the process.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, the glee sometimes that I see people take out of taking down people, where I'm like, are we trying to disrupt an idea, or are we trying to take out that person? And I feel like knowing the difference between that is really important. But I fundamentally, believe in all of the work that I have done, that you're gonna have all sorts of opponents.
Tension and
you're all gonna have to, in the middle of the ALEC campaign, we found out that ALEC had hired Edelman PR to basically try to,
they came for you every week.
Try to make
every
me
week.
And my dimples angry black man, and I would start seeing stories in right-wing media that I was like, the next coming of this communist or that. And I was just like, continue to do the work and focus on running the campaign
and building the power.
Drumbeat of building enough energy, responding to the moments that happen out in the world. And then over time, right, they're going to do everything they can to prevent themselves from having to negotiate. Once you build up enough leverage to negotiate, now you're in that back and forth. And I really want to make that clear to folks because, right, nothing worth winning is going to happen without real opposition. It's not going to happen without us being under attack on our way there. When we are disrupting the ways in which people make money, if we disrupt the way the criminal justice system works, that means that people's jobs and livelihoods will be disrupted. Right. There's just no other way to look at it. When we disrupt sort of the predatory practices of banks, that means the ways that people have done their work and the ways that they've made money are going to be disrupted. Yeah. And that means that we have to be ready to actually do that disrupting. We have to have infrastructure, we have to align, and we have to know that along the way, there's going to be people who disappoint us. There's going to be people who we expected to be with us. And there'll be people who weren't really with us, who when we win, will say they always were with us.
They were responsible.
I mean, you may not actually know this, Rashad, but I made a couple of calls that were really critical.
Rashad, I hear that every week. I met with them, and they said, why were you meeting with them without me?
Totally.
Why? But okay, you know what? I learned, because 30 years you learn things, to say thank you so much. I appreciate every call you made. I appreciate everybody's everything.
We need everything. We need everything and everyone. But
do you think we can build power with the public onslaught that happens every time Black people open their mouths and maybe don't say the right thing or make people feel like there is confusion?
Yes. I feel like we are in a moment where a lot is possible. And I think that every day our opponents give us openings, if we're willing to take them. I think the enablers and the corporations who back them are worried and nervous. I think we will head into this new post this 26 election, and we're going to have to hold the people we put in office accountable. But I'm watching in these primaries, there's a hunger for a new level of accountability. Yep. There's a hunger for something different among people, and particularly young people and folks of color. And if we can sort of recognize that they are going to use race, they're going to use gender, they're going to use all of these things to divide us. And so it's not just enough to us to like set up defenses so that we're not divided. It's going to be as important for us to really build sort of the energy and the demands of what we want, how we're driving people, the sort of hope and aspiration. I talk a lot in the conclusion of the book about backlash. And I connect backlash to hope. And I connect it to like the time that we're in. Like the three of us sitting at this table right now, we are here in this particular time. We get to be in this particular time who we get to be, right? If we were born, 50 years ago, I might be dead, I might not have survived. I say all that to say that like taking every opportunity we each have to do what we possibly can in this moment is also part of it. And so no movement has ever won. No movement has ever changed anything without a culture of belief. People believing something for themselves and for their families that they can't see or they can't touch. I think about our ancestors who, like, I heard Ta-Nehisi Coates in an interview talk about how many generations of people were born and died enslaved, but they still dreamed of something better for their kids.
That's right. That's right.
And when I think about that, and I think about the time that we get to live in, right? That we get to amplify our ideas out in the world. We get to fight back. Yes, there's a lot of challenge, but we are in a place where we can try to move the ball forward. Let's take it.
I love that. I love you saying that. Sorry, my son.
No, go ahead.
I love you, putting forward that even with all the stuff, because there's so much. There's so much. It's very loud. everything. If you're tuned in. If you're not, you can kind of have rest in peace that, hey, well, somebody else is going to work it out because I don't have time for it. Whatever. And sommes I wish I was like in that bucket, but
I couldn't see you there for a second.
A girl can hope.
Yes,
a girl can hope, but that's not my reality.
Yeah.
I've made other different choices, and I appreciate that God gave me the instinct to do something, right? To try something, to get in the work. But I appreciate you saying that even with all the noise and all the difficult things and all of the challenges and the tensions that we face, if we believe that we can win, we can win.
Yeah, and we combine that with strategy.
Yes,
and we combine that with we fight the magical thinking. But yes, I think any wins start with people believing that winning is possible and willing to like fight for it and put energy behind it. It's just that is the fuel. That's where these efforts start. Nothing I've ever built or run in terms of a campaign has existed without people willing to be able to like raise their voices, to show up on a corporation, to demand something out of an elected official, to force a situation that seemed on its face something we would lose, but we built up enough power and energy where we became unignorable to those in charge, and they were forced to actually have to hear us. First, before they do anything, they're going to try to discredit you, right? They're going to try to make it so that people don't listen to you. But that is a metric on the way to winning.
That's right.
They're not spending money to discredit you if you are not a threat. When you are ignorable, you are truly ignorable. So when they're attacking you, Tamika, when they're pushing back, it's because you have pulled enough of a thread, you've created enough of a danger, you've created enough of a challenge, and now they're like, okay, well,
let's hire the PR firm.
Every campaign where we started to see the attacks, I knew, they've had some meetings inside. They have decided they're not yet ready to give us what we want, but what they have decided is that they need to stop what we're doing. And now we have to turn up the pressure. And so sometimes I think where we can go wrong because of the error that we're in is that we don't have the resources or the energy or even sometimes the like wherewithal to see it through. And so we will like do something for a couple of months and not feel like it's making the type of change. And to know like if you're going to take down a multinational corporation, if you're going to force members of Congress to change their vote, if you're going to, change the policy of your local school, it's not going to happen overnight. And if it did happen overnight, it's probably because you didn't get the win that you really needed. You got the first win. You didn't get the big win. Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, there's so many things to unpack here, right? Just listening, right? You get motivated as just being a part of this movement. You get motivated by certain things, and then there's just times where you get this feeling like, are we really fighting for something that's attainable, right? I watched Finding Harry Belafonte. They have like a short documentary on it, right? And the main thing I watch is, he's a brilliant man, and he's always been for the movement. But there was footage from like 3 different generations in there, right? And I watched him have this enthusiasm, right, motivating young leaders. He was motivating Carmen and Phil Agnew, and he was talking to them. He was like, "What are we supposed to do? We supposed to find the agenda." And then there was the Parkland, right? Yeah. Then he was talking to them with the same conversation. And he was talking to Tamika and them with the same conversation. And I seen a little bit of energy leaving him every time because it was the same fight, right? He was having these same conversations with 3 different generations of leaders who really wanted to win, right? And I believe that we've seen wins, but now I find ourselves back in a situation where it's like, we gotta fight for this again, right? Like we literally gotta fight for this again, but my soul won't let me do anything else. So it's so confusing. And sometimes do you ever feel like that? Like, what are we?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm human, so yeah. So it is. yeah, you can sometimes feel like, what are we doing? Like, what's the end of it all, right? But that's why I came to this real clear conclusion that when your opponents think the war is never over, and you think the war is over, you show up with the wrong mentality about what the war is.
Yeah.
And I think the war is not over. I think we will constantly be fighting and pushing and building. And it's a lifelong struggle. But also, like, I want to, like, it's not just struggle.
But it's not yours only.
Yes.
That's the thing. I feel like we all play a role.
Yes.
And we have to see ourselves.
And the culture of belief isn't just about struggle. It's about joy, too.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I mean, we should be able to, like, feel a sense of hope and optimism and happiness with our wins. We should be able to, like, know that we're doing this so that the people that come behind us have more opportunities than we had. Like, this is also part of the thing that should sustain us in this too. And if it is just about struggle, I think what ends up happening is like no one wants to be part of that either. And so we do have to create the right sense of, like, hope and possibility and joy. And I've watched you do that through your work constantly.
But that doesn't mean that there's still not a struggle happening.
No, absolutely.
It's in progress. It's just you don't have to stay dialed into it at the highest level of intensity at all times. Sure. There are days when you can take rest, take all the things, time, joy, life, have passions that you want to actually follow, ride bikes, experience family. My granddaughter's very special. These are things. And there are some people who burn out because they wake up in the morning and go to bed. And I've been there. I'm sure you have too, where you wake up in the morning and it's like, I got to, today, we're gonna, and you run out because it's not possible when, to your point, there is no real end point because your opponent is never going to give up. Never, ever going to give up.
They've made it their lifestyle.
And they have it. And another thing that I was sitting here thinking is that as you get engulfed into this movement and you get engulfed into fighting for our people and wanting to win, right? Sometimes you think winning only looks one way.
Yeah.
You think winning is the way you see it, and if it's not that, then it's not. And those are the main things that divide us. But as you continue to move on to this space, you realize winning can look like something that you want, right? It can look like something that you want. It's a culmination of all of what we want together. And once you grab onto it, because I don't have to fight with you because I think we should go that way, and you might have a route to get. I don't want to fight with you about that. Like, that's not even something I want to fight. I want to figure out, all right, so we both trying to get there. We might
how do we move the needle?
But how do we move the needle, right? And I think that's like so much special, and that's what social media has done. Social media has divided people based on what direction they want. Like, we got FBA and we got natural blacks and we got we all black people fighting the same and you really convinced yourself that your struggle is somehow different because the enemy knows how to divide you. He knows how to keep you focusing on the shit that don't matter at all, so you don't get to the things that matter. So I think for me, I'm at a space now, like, how do we get there together? Like, I don't need to get there by myself. I don't need to be right. I don't need to be the leader. I don't need to be the strongest. I don't need to know all the things. I want to know that whatever it is that I have contributed to us getting to the ultimate goal.
And how do we disagree in ways that actually allow us to hear one another, see one another, to understand the arguments that we're disagreeing with, right? And to push back in healthy ways. Look, I've, over the years, had deep disagreements with folks in the movement and had felt like I learned things along the way if I was willing to listen. It didn't mean that I changed my opinion. It meant, like, I really understood a perspective. I understood why someone didn't want to go that route and I wanted to go a different route, and that was important. I do think that, one thing I recently said in relationship to, like, a lot of folks were sharing the mugshot of Andrew Gillum all online, and my first reaction was, like, why are we sharing this mugshot, like, of this black man? Like, why, like, on Mark Zuckerberg's platform, right?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I got another question.
Like, it's like, we know how these systems work and how they monetize. We know, I testified in front of Congress next to the Facebook whistleblower. And the whistleblower papers all showed that that controversy is what drives people to stay on Facebook and Instagram longer. So people fighting. So, how many times have you gotten something that they call it rage bait, right? Where it keeps you on and you get mad about it and you share it with someone else, or because they have to sell ads. So they need you on there longer. And happy stuff does not keep you on there longer.
Wow. Right?
And so we are falling right into the trap of I've watched people that I have seen in one setting talk about racial justice and criminal justice, and the next minute sharing a mugshot from Alabama of a black person.
Or traveling down this road
of drugs.
People, or that person stole money or from an organization, things that, where did you get that from? Where did it originate?
And why were you so quick to share it?
Share it, exactly. And then talk about how much you love black people.
And then take glee
in
the downfall of someone else.
That's serious. Now we don't have enough time today to go down that rabbit hole.
But what I hope I'm offering what I hope I'm offering in the book is that once you understand profiteering, once you understand profiteering as a framework, then you see these things through a different lens. The design of why does this travel?
That's what
why does this
keep
get amplified? Why do more people see this?
Why does the anti-black person always have a platform?
My son's been saying, which I pay attention now, that the black MAGA supporters could have 2 followers, but for some reason they're all over everybody's timeline. How is that possible when I have 1 million and people are telling me they never see my content?
It is by design.
Yes.
Right? this is by design. It's how the system is designed. And this is, part of why, back in 2016, 2017, I was pushing for regulation of these companies.
Right.
Because self-regulated companies are unregulated companies. And now we're still in this unregulated role where
it's worse.
Yes. And so you have the biggest, you have someone who's now a trillionaire owning a social media platform. I met with Elon Musk right after he bought Twitter. And he had not much to say other than, I want to make Twitter fun again. And this should be a public square. A public square owned by a single white South African is a scary proposition because one is that's not a public square, and two, we know what white South Africans did to public squares, and I've never heard Elon Musk talk about anything related to what he thinks about Mandela or Desmond Tutu. When a white South African doesn't tell you how they feel about that, you have to really worry and question. So I say all that to say that we understanding profiteers, which is one of the key frameworks in the book, understanding perception, which is how you see a problem determines how you see the solution. And far too often we see inequality as unfortunate, like it's a car accident, like it almost just happened. Not that there's someone behind it manufacturing, benefiting from it.
They got in the car, they drank the drink and smoked the crack and did whatever and said, I'm headed down here to kill people.
Yes, because that's not unfortunate. That's unjust, right? But we sometimes see, it's and so when you define a problem, so, I remember seeing you, we were someplace and you had just watched the Hurricane Katrina documentary. Oh,
and I was destroyed. Yes.
Right?
Oh.
And think about Hurricane Katrina. Think about everything we know about Katrina as a life-altering disaster that was caused by bad decision makers. How often do you hear people call it a natural disaster? They put natural in front of
a natural disaster for Katrina.
Yes, they call it Katrina a natural disaster.
They call it a natural disaster.
Well, that's not a natural disaster.
It wasn't natural. Yeah.
It was caused, but from a perception perspective, they're always trying to manage perception. So you call it a natural disaster, and then it changes how people see the problem. Because now it's not unjust. Now it's not caused. And so when Katrina's happening, and you look at the presence versus power framework, Kanye West, right, is deeply present, probably uttering the most memorable words from that sort of era. George Bush doesn't care about black people. But while that's happening, very present, you have something behind the scenes that's very powerful, and that's Mike Pence, who was then a congressman.
That's right.
And he was meeting with other Republicans after the levees broke at the Heritage Foundation 20 years before Project 2025, and they divided up New Orleans. They decided how they were going to privatize it and privatize its resources, blame its black leadership for decisions that were made at the federal level, and totally sort of take control over the future of a very visible black city, right? That you don't get the culture of New Orleans without black people.
That's right.
And this is what I mean by you can be deeply present and not have any power. And how the folks who stand in our way are constantly trying to build power. And if we're just building presence, then we are in a losing battle.
I don't know if you want to go next.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to talk about Target for a moment. So there is a lot, again, that's another one of those issues where we could just we're going to have a show today with Rashad Robinson just to dissect and analyze Target from start to finish. Earlier on the show, we talked about Jay-Z's comments during his night one performance of his just recent shows tour. And he made a statement about people being upset with him about his album being in Target, and meanwhile they're still using Google and all the things to make the statements. They're actually tweeting or whatever at him from these other platforms and not boycotting those platforms, but picking and choosing Target. Now, let me just say, which we've talked about, there is this concept of selective outrage that I've been hearing everywhere, which to me is a cop-out. A lot of people are talking about, it's all selective outrage. And our friends have said it. We've had many debates, as you said, about this idea that we're mad at one and not the other. I don't know, though, of a time when my parents used to boycott BP BP oil, because of the oil spill in Mississippi. My mom is from Alabama, and they were intentional. Again, this is not just an accident that happened. These are environmental issues that people had been raising for some time. It was never structurally addressed, and now black folks are harmed by this oil spill. And so they became a part of protests, and they've been in other protests for a long time. No one said we're going to boycott every single gas station and nobody can drive their car, right? That was not a thing. In Montgomery, there was only one bus company, so it's very different. But they didn't say, well, we're not going to drive our cars either. We're going to stop we're going to turn the lights off in the house because the light company is disrespectful. If black people started undressing themselves, their homes, their families, and their lifestyles from all the things that's racist and harmful, we would be walking around butt naked, running up and down the street, in my mind. So when I hear that, this question about selective outrage or why Target only, and then I also hear you talking about Meta, and how dangerous they are. What do you think about making the comparison? Does it make sense to you? Or as a practitioner who has done many boycotts, do you understand, as I do, that when a particular company is chosen, it is for a particular purpose and it plays a particular role in the movement?
Yeah. So I fundamentally believe in you have to build a domino effect and domino strategy. You also have to look at the landscape and figure out, where do we have leverage?
That's right.
Who should our first target be and why, right? I remember we started the ALEC campaign by talking to about 20 corporations behind the scenes, not calling them out publicly, going back and forth with conversations. But they were all companies that had said, we support the Black community. They advertise during Black History Month. They have stuff with Black radio. So we reached out to those companies first. I remember being on the phone with someone from Kraft who had been sponsoring ALEC, and they finally got their senior level Black person on the phone with me, and they were like, and I said, Black people like macaroni and cheese. And this would be a problem. And they were like, and that person talked about voting with their grandfather, and I talked about voting with my grandfather when we got off the phone. But Pepsi pulled out behind the scenes. After some back and forth, Pepsi said, we're no longer going to be part of ALEC. We had sort of made some insinuations because they owned, at the time, they owned the Aunt Jemima brand. And I was like, well, these could be a good billboards with you all preventing Aunt Jemima from voting. And they pulled out behind the scenes. So when Pepsi pulls out behind the scenes, strategically, who's your first public target? It's Coke.
It's Coke, right.
And so that's why we made the choice. Now, yes, there were other companies, and I remember there were organizations that had labor fights with certain companies. Like, oh no, it should definitely be X company. It should be this company. Along the way, it is important that you keep people in the story. We also know that the PR engines of these companies are fierce, and they're going to in the middle of your campaign, they're going to sign brand deals with Black people, and they're going to try to amplify and discredit your movement work. But you know that that's because you're making traction. And so, yeah, what I know is this. I know that we can what if this to death, but we have to be able to go out and sometimes take on an opponent collectively and put up enough energy and focus to win that battle. And will that one target that we hit prove to do everything that we wanted to do? No. But, I'm 5'3", so I grew up, being bullied sometimes. And I think about this, and my dad's 5'3" too. And so he would be like, sometimes you're gonna have to fight. And you may have to defend yourself. And, you may not win, but you wanna fight in such a way, this is so awful. You wanna fight in such a way so that folks know, well, he may not have won, but actually it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. He's gonna and so we have to take on some fights to change the line of what's acceptable, of how we should be treated. And if we what if at all of these situations,
we'll never fight.
And we'll never move things forward. Right. And there'll always be there's no target that is important. And we've all been on the ground in communities where people have mobilized to stand up, to fight for an unarmed Black person has been killed. And every single time, they try to find a way to make that person an undeserving victim, and undeserving of our attention or our sympathy. This is all the same strategy. It's how do we insert enough doubt into the campaign so that folks are not willing to move or engage. And I think for all of our campaigns, as we take on corporations, I think we're just going to need, and I talk about it a lot, is we're going to need more infrastructure. I think we talked about it during the Target campaign. You need a person multiple people who's going to wake up every day.
And just work.
And just keep the community involved, keep the community engaged. And when you leave too many gaps because we don't have the money for it, we don't have the time for it, it's like fighting a battle but not having the weaponry, not having the infrastructure, not having the cavalry. And that to me is one thing that I always focus on. Is if we're gonna take on a fight, and once again this may come from knowing to not let my alligator mouth get the rest of me into situations that I can't back up. It's to before you make the threat, before you make the demand, know what you're willing to do when they say no. Are you willing to actually run a campaign? Are you willing? And I've watched over the last couple of years in our movement, as someone who's running a lot of corporate campaigns, people reach out to me about corporate campaigns sometimes, and they'll be on it, and they'll have the right target, they'll have the right energy, but they wouldn't have yet thought about how hard it is. And I tell everybody how hard it is, because what's going to happen is that you're going to have an initial couple of stories, and then you're going to have a lull. And in that lull, you've got to be like doing all the infrastructure building and all the campaigning. And while you have that lull, they're going to be arming themselves. They're going to be deciding how they discredit you, how they protect themselves, how
and partner with people who look like you, and the whole thing.
The whole thing. All of that's going to happen. That is the back and forth of this work. In some ways, that's the fun part for me, right? That's the part that I relish, because I know that now I'm in a real battle. Because if they're not doing those things, then I haven't yet proven myself to be a worthy opponent.
Viable. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been incredible. I don't know what else you have to say. I would love for you to tell us, who is this book for?
Yeah.
That's a really important question, because if I'm watching, we have all types of people that watch our show.
I love this.
Grandmas, young people, folks who are working, folks who are strategizing. Who would you say go out and get it tomorrow, as soon as it drops? What's the date that it drops?
July 28th.
July
28th.
Days away.
Days away. So you can pre-order now. It's you can get it anywhere you buy books. This book is for people who are tired of us losing and want to win more things. I wrote this book for people who wake up every day and, watch this podcast, who watch the news, who may show up to a protest, who may give a little bit of money to a campaign when they see it, who talk about these issues in the beauty salon, in the barbershop. Folks who want a perspective about why we are losing and what we can do to win. Because, there's a long list of ideas that I have and that we all have about how the world should work. And I could have and some of those are in the book. But the book is what it is the book is a how-to. It's a set of lessons and tools. And so the book is also meant to pass along. The book, you should buy one for yourself and maybe buy one for a young person in your life, or read it and pass it along. The 9 exercises at the end of the chapters are a great starting place if you're trying to map your own sort of community and world and trying to understand what's a good use of your time. Is this protest worth it? Is giving money to this type of campaign useful? Like, that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to unlock this. What I'm also trying to do, hopefully, is get us out of the celebratory things that sometimes happen because we made an effort, but we actually didn't make any progress. And I want us to be able to look 5, 10, 15 years from now and actually feel like we move things for our people forward. And so when I talk about winning, I am talking about the winning real world change that makes people's lives better. And so the Find Your Power section for me is some of the most important, because it helps us move from analysis to action. It's about finding your power in the singular, like you.
That's you.
As an individual,
yes,
finding your power.
That's right.
And it's also about finding your power in the plural.
Our power.
Our power, our collective power. And those two things are essential to us being able to move forward. And if either one of you hadn't found your power, and sometimes having to refine your power some days, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think I refined my ass. No, I'm just joking. I refined my spirit. Every day it's like, okay, I know yesterday the news came out, or the thing happened, or the check didn't come, and all the stuff that just makes you just feel like, if all things were happening as they should, I know we could do this thing, but there's challenges. It's life. Sometimes you're tired. You can't stay up all night to write the speech or do the thing. So every morning when I wake up, I tell myself that it is not all on me. This is not my fight by myself. Get that out of your head, because that's the first way to me to just break down. If you think all of this stuff that's happening is your fault or your responsibility to solve. I say that, and I also tell myself, you are doing a good job.
Yeah.
Because you keep staying in.
Yeah.
And so you are doing a good job by taking the wins, the losses, all the things, and telling the truth.
Yeah.
And then putting it in the world. You know, Dr. Angela Davis and Cardi B were the two collaborators for the foreword of my first book, State of Emergency. Very powerful. Cardi B writes first to Dr. Davis that I'm like, I don't know the words, the language, I cuss, I twerk, I'm all that, but I still care about my people. Is there space for me next to you in this movement? And Dr. Davis responds to her by saying, you're actually very critical because you even have more people who listen to you than me. And they have this powerful conversation. And I remember going to Dr. Davis to say to her, I just want to take this whole book and throw it in the garbage. I don't want anybody to see it. It's just too, it's emotionally a lot for me. And I said, people are going to want to know what makes me think I have answers.
Yeah.
You know, that what makes you think you have answers?
Yes.
And you know what she said? She said, your job is not to worry about that. Your job is to write it down, put it in the world, and let it go. Yeah. It will become its own thing. Yeah. And so here it is.
Here it is.
It's in the 10 years ago. Yes. You thought about it. Yeah. Writing a book is freaking hard as shit, bruh.
It is the
My
hardest
son has
thing.
3 books.
That I so much credit.
Not like y'all books.
So much credit.
I have books. But the thing for me is the thought process, right? To take your thoughts to fruition and really carry it through. Like even the concept of this is so strong, right? Just because as organizers, as you know, considered leaders in moving in spaces, like everyone in this space is going to be able to really understand this thought, just the thought process, and the fact that you were able to capture it. Just reading the synopsis and things of that nature, I know I already understand exactly where you're coming from, because we all want to know, like, we want to move from presence to power. We want all the things that we're doing to actually materialize into the thing that we want to see. So, and you breaking it down, and you actually showing that it might not look like that. It might not look like this. What you think it might be, it might not be that. All those things are ideologies and just even sometimes insecurities that we have as individuals who move in this space. So I'm just looking forward to it.
No, thank you both. And yes, along the way I did think, like, should I be the person? But I also would see a lot of strategy books out there from people that didn't have receipts. Had ideas, smart people, but didn't have receipts from the campaigns. And we don't get to write strategy books oftentimes. They have us writing really important books, idea books, memoirs. These are all really important books. But I wanted to write the strategy book from the perspective that I bring, which is both unique, but also the set of receipts along the way. And 20 years of wins and losses along the way, and to offer that up to anyone who wants to win more things. And you know, I'm really excited about the reception that the book is getting, the folks who have really sort of appreciated, who feel like it's something new. And I'm also interested in the wrestling that this will do, because I do think some people are going to be uncomfortable with how much I center racial justice. And that's also an invitation to the audience. This book needs support. And we know that the right wing has a whole infrastructure to get their ideas out, to make sure that people buy their books and that they get into libraries and bookstores where people can use them. And we have a much harder path. And the thing I'll say about this book is it does take on corporations. So there will be some corporate media outlets that won't have me on. Because
and I tell people all the time that when we put the energy into writing a book, giving our experiences, teaching, and being honest. You know, my memoir, I am giving it all.
100%.
Every bit of me for somebody that they can look at my journey and figure out their own, right? And write their own book and say,
yes.
shit, Tamika's story? Well, mine also. Let me finish the chapters,
Yes.
right? Yes. The least that we need,
yes,
the least we need is for you to go out and purchase it.
Yes.
Support us. Yes. Put it on a coffee table. Let your kids thumb through it. You know, then we need you to actually read it and tell somebody else about it. So please, y'all, I'm so proud because I know what the struggle is of getting it from your mind to the paper to the binding, the process with the publishers. Y'all know, y'all went through this process with me for years.
Legal.
Oh, the legal process.
I'm talking about Facebook. I'm talking about, you know, like the legal review to get to be able to talk about the text messages from Sheryl Sandberg.
Right.
Which is
the vulnerability of I lost sometimes.
Yes.
All of that stuff, it's not easy to do. So y'all go out and purchase from Rashad Robinson's From Presence to Power, How to Take on the Fights That Matter and Win. We're proud of you, Rashad.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate being here so much.
It's a little old TMI
of course, my friends. Thank you.
Mysonne says we're the number one podcast in the world.
That's right.
I love that. Well, I got to I don't have to do any other podcast.
That's right.
I did it. Yes.
This is it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If only we lived in a time where people actually purchase books the way that they used to. My parents went out and got every book. If you were a Black person who they liked or admired or thought or didn't even like, by the way, they have books that belong to people who they don't agree with about shit. I think there's a book on Clarence Thomas in my parents' house, I think. Wow. But it's because they wanted all the knowledge. They want to understand, where did he come from? See, they didn't have the internet the way that we do, where you don't have to purchase it, but you could just go Google it up and read it and know it and then throw it away. But which, by the way, that also lends itself to somebody's algorithm and the support for, you know, on one of these apps about people Googling you and looking up your name and your story. So that actually works in your favor as well. But it's obviously not at the same level as buying a book of, you know, a particular author. But they used to buy books from a lot of different people to read and understand different perspectives. I know one of my friends, her mother had the book of the gentleman you mentioned to me the other day, or a book about him. The pastor in Harlem who has all the very controversial statements that he puts up, and, you know, sometimes hateful in my opinion. You know, them and the Israelites, like just learning about all the different elements of what's out there in Black world. And so, again, when you don't have the internet at the same level that we do now, it creates a space for more books, more reading of Black and white, you know, more turning the page. Now, because of all these devices and the way that our attention spans go so quickly, people do not take the time to purchase books, and the book industry is actually suffering greatly as a result of that. It's sense. Good to know that, you know, my publishing company, Black Privilege Publishing, I'm not a New York Times bestseller, but there are a number of people who are, you know, and that gives them space to have books for people like me who may not be the top selling author, but still I have two important, very important books. And so, you know, you play with the numbers and you kind of move things around to be able to accommodate your passion and your profit at the same time. And I appreciate being the beneficiary of, you know, such, you know, agreement, if you will, between the two, and the negotiation between making money and making good purpose. But I hope that people take away from what Rashad is offering, that his book actually has in it real how-to steps. And people ask me every day, well, what do we do? What do we do? What's the next step? What do we do? And I think that folks struggle with the idea that what we do or what's next is not going to be just this one cookie cutter answer or this one good idea and this one hit. It's actually going to take you having to sit back and get some knowledge and ability to assess your role, where you stand. In State of Emergency, my first book, I talk a lot about what is the role of an ally or a supporter or a person who's supposed to be in the movement. What is your role? How do you play a significant part in what you actually can do and help to move the needle forward? So I think that there's enough material out there that if one is interested in really becoming or wants to go to the next level of change making, that they should, pick up these bodies of work and support these authors. So I hope folks support Rashad.
No, I do too, man. Just listening to him talk about the book and just reading the synopsis of the book and just understanding how important it is.
From presence to power.
Presence to power. And just showing how you have to actually do things. It's not
what
just... What
does that mean?
It means like... People think, oh, this is trendy or this and that, and people are paying attention. It's a viral little second or moment. That doesn't just manifest into power. There are steps. There are a lot of things that go in. There's actual work that goes into creating power out of trendy situations and things that go viral. So talking about that and just showing the difference between things that go viral and things that actually turn into power and what power actually looks like. So I think it's an important book, and I hope people do really sit down and read it.
Absolutely.
So for my I Don't Get It this week, we had a very tragic situation, where a man lost his life. He was well known in the basketball arena. He played college basketball, played professional overseas, and he was playing in the Kingdom tournament in Harlem, and he was fatally shot in his head and lost his life by a bullet that wasn't even intended for him. And the crazy thing is, I bring my kids to Kingdom. I go to Kingdom. I go to a lot of the Harlem tournaments. I go to the Dykeman. Like in the summertime, I like to watch professional basketball, so I go to all of the tournaments, and my sons love it too. And when I seen that he was I was actually going to go to Kingdom. Literally was going, but I wasn't here. I think we had something that we were doing, so I wasn't available to go. But I was saying to myself, I'm gonna go to Kingdom. I'm gonna go to Queen of Harlem's tournament, and I'm gonna be there. And it really hurt me that man lost his life at the basketball game. And I just don't know why. Like, why are people killing people at basketball games? Like, why is that not some place that you go to enjoy? You bring in your kids, you want to see, people play at the highest level of basketball. You want to be entertained. Like, why, after all these years, are people still bringing that negativity to those spaces? Where these kids are there, where innocent people are there. This man was a good dude. I don't know him personally, but everybody that I know who knows him talks about how good of a person he was, how he would give the shirt off his back to someone, how he was just that good of a person. He lost his life for something that was nothing.
But what was he the intended
No,
target?
he was not the intended
So this
target.
was a shooting where he was hit in the midst of a shooting.
He was hit in the midst of a shooting, and he lost his life. And I think someone else was actually shot as well, but he actually lost his life.
His life was taken.
His life was taken. And it's like, at what point does it stop? At what point do we look and say, this is our communities? When are we going to say that we love our communities, that we're going to protect our communities, we're going to protect our children, we're going to protect just our space? I remember a couple of years ago, shout out to Queen of Harlem and my brother Hunk. We organized a march around to each of the basketball tournaments in Harlem, in which we did a prayer. We said a prayer on each of those courts that there would be no violence that come to anyone on those courts, and we declared them safe spaces. And, it's like, Dad, we probably should do that. We should do that every year. I think we need to make a practice of that throughout the city. I think that should be a practice where, because when you see things, you start, it materializes into things. When people see us come out there and we say a prayer, and you see people from the community declare that this is a safe space and no violence will happen in this community, then the people that come in here start respecting it different. And I think sometimes people forget that. I don't know who the shooter was. I don't even know what the situation was about, but I just know it shouldn't happen there. It shouldn't happen anywhere. Like, at some point, we got to stop taking each other's lives, but there has to be rules in places that are off guard, that are off limits, that you're not shooting on basketball courts, you're not shooting in playgrounds. Like, those things they can't happen. And I think we need to get back to that rally and that march and that declaration by the community leaders, by the family members. We went to each park, family members came out, older ladies, older men, young kids, everyone, and we just declared that they were safe spaces. And I don't remember for the last couple of years where anything happened on those spaces. So I think we need to. It was.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had some better days in the last 2 summers.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will give Eric Adams credit for, and he could have done more, of course, in terms of making sure that the resources were expanded. I totally believe that. But one thing I will give him credit for is he used to walk the street, just talking to people, with you guys, going out, just being around late night, early morning. He said he used to do, he would go to the back of the barbershop with a Hennessy. Ooh, Lord. I'm not going to, anyway. But while for us it was kind of like TMI, like we just didn't need to know. But at the same time, I get the point that he was making was that you can find him in the hood, in the community, walking and talking with our people. And I think, I'm not suggesting, I think, of course, Mamdani, he's been out there at some of the shooting responses, but we got to do some of that pre-work and get him also out there in the community. And I'm not suggesting that I think that Mayor Mamdani and Mayor Eric Adams have the same cachet with the Black community. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that what we have learned is that it's all hands on deck kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And I've had that conversation with him. I've had the conversation with him to tell him that if people were shooting in April, right, and we had the loss of the young man who the kids were fighting or doing whatever they was doing, and they had the gun, and then the young boy, I think he's 14 years old or something, was killed, and then
the in Queens?
Baby in Queens. Or maybe it was in Brooklyn. It's too many cases, because also there was the baby in the stroller. All of this stuff happened while it was still cold outside. Mm-hmm. It wasn't hot. Yeah. And so my advice to him was that my knowledge of and the years of experience that I have in this area tells me that if you have shootings that early, the summer is going to be hot, everywhere. And so there has to be a strategy. And thankfully, you have our sister, Ronita Francois, who is now in the position as Deputy Mayor of Community Safety. And so there's certainly a focus. There's certainly, they're working very much towards being able to wrap their hands around many of the safety issues in the city. But as with everything else, Black people are our own lane. We're our lane, you almost need something that's just about Black people. Literally, you need 6 deputy mayors that their entire focus
on the Black.
Is just on the Black people. Because if you can solve the concerns in the Black community, you can solve the concerns of the entire society. And I think that people, and I think that's one of the critiques of Bernie Sanders and the socialist movement, right? That they think sort of the opposite, that if you can solve for the poor and right,
and it'll trickle down to Black,
or not trickle down, trickle
or it
would
just affect
in some way, right? It'll impact everybody. if you can deal with the poor, the impoverished, the vulnerable, and I think some of that is true. But what we know is that what we know is that when you positively impact the lives of Black folks in this country, in these cities, then it helps everybody because everybody rides our back. And that's a fact. That's why what Cardi B said is so true. That if it were not for Black people and the contributions we've made, there would not be the success of the Caribbean culture and all the others. Black Americans have been the trendsetters. So, when I see things like that, I get it that on the surface level, your question is like, why is there no code? Like, what happened to the code? But I think we lost the codes a long time ago.
For me, it's just like, why are we just not protecting safe spaces? Like, these are places where.
But I don't think these kids know what that like somebody taught you that.
A basketball court is a safe space. Like, basketball kept me alive.
But somebody taught you that.
It wasn't, because even the people that was in the street, the most gangsterous dudes would come watch us play basketball and say, yo, make sure they safe. Like, keep that away from them. They over there doing something positive. Well, we over here, we going to take whatever we doing somewhere else. And it's just like, the fact that that's no longer a thing is just disheartening. It's just like, wow.
But I think what I'm saying is, what I'm expressing is that if the OGs or the gangsters and all the things used to look at the landscape and say these places are cordoned off as protected zones, that type of thought process and that type of leadership doesn't exist today. I don't even know if you call it leadership, but whatever. It doesn't exist today.
It is leadership.
Well, to some extent, because you can't be like, kill down the block. That's not leadership.
It is leadership. Nah, what are you talking about? Generals in the army get Purple Hearts for it.
And because guess what? At least
it's misguided army. It's just like John O'Brien said. It's misguided army. It's the same exact strategy. He said drug dealer is just what he said, an immoral businessman. But he has the same principles. He understands, buying, selling. He understands product. He understands the same thing. He just needs to put it into a different practice. So when we talk about these people in the street and they think they're actually leading, they think they're fighting for something. They think they gotta, we gotta protect each other and all of that. And they giving orders and they doing that. Then they're actually leading something. Whether it's leading them positively or negatively is I understand that, but they definitely leading something.
Mr. Lennon, I am not getting ready to argue with you back and forth, but if you are out here, it is leading, and it is the most ass backwards, ridiculous leadership ever.
I can hear that.
That when you are leading people and saying, kill on these 10 blocks, but not these 2 or 3, no killing at all is leadership. But let's leave that alone. I'm saying today, it doesn't exist. Today, there is a pop culture. Everything is right now, right here, got to get it. Don't read, don't learn, don't know nothing, don't have community the way in which we should. And I'm not talking about Black people. I'm saying across all races and groups, people are addicted to everything happening at speed. So if you see your op, get them. Don't matter where it is. It's on site. It's anytime, any place. And so what you're looking for is the establishment of a code that would require a real system of, of OGs doing like real work to
I think it's just
set
about,
the tone.
Just about morality. It's just about just understanding that regardless of what not bringing everybody into situations that you may have in the community, especially in a safe space. And I think the basketball court, to me, this is a safe space. It's like people go there to enjoy themselves. So I don't think the people who are not there to enjoy themselves should be there.
I refuse to take the bait today. Because it's some of, the people that don't set the proper tone. But anyway.
So in conclusion, let's take back our communities. Let's protect our basketball courts. Let's protect our safe spaces. Let's make sure that our children feel safe, that the ladies feel safe, that we can go to our basketball courts and enjoy a summertime and watch people play basketball. And let's just enjoy. Let's get back to love and protecting our communities. We say that we don't want police, but if we're not making sure that our communities are safe, if we're not providing community safety, then what happens? Look is what happens. So once again, R.I.P. to Keanu and his family. You know, I hope that we've learned something from this. It's a good brother, man. He was taken too early. You know, anyone who loses their lives at the hands of gun violence is taken too early, but we definitely wanted to send our love and respect out to him and his family. And may his death not be in vain. May it teach us a lesson. May we grow from it, and may we not see another one.
Amen. That
brings us to the end of another episode of TMI. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram at TMI_show. Make sure you follow us on YouTube at TMI Show PC. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mallory is not going to always be wrong. We will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace. Listen to the TMI podcast on the Black Effect Network, on iHeartRadio, or anywhere podcasts are available.
Or catch the video version on YouTube at TMI Show PC.